is now 6 p.m. I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for October 18th, 2022. Roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Chad Cleckler.
Here.
Daniel Turner.
Here.
David Wright.
Here.
Cassie Hollinshead.
Here.
Tony Harris.
Here.
Amanda Kelly. And Randy Humphrey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. If you will please stand and join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this time that we can gather here. Be with all of us now as we enter into this meeting. Guide us and direct us as we conduct business for the city of White House. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated. That takes us to item D on our agenda, community interest.
Yes, sir, Commissioners. We have the Veterans Day ceremony where the Youth Community Council will do their unveiling of the bronze bust. It's not a bust. It's a kneeling soldier. I'm sorry, the kneeling soldier. That will be November 11th.
Where's that gonna be?
It's there where the statue, where the soldier's cross is now. It'll be on the same pedestal. Just be there with it.
November, what's the date?
The 11th.
Okay.
No,
You know
it'll be
what time?
on the 12th.
Oh,
On
it's
the
on the
12th.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It'll
It's on
be
the
the day
12th.
after Veterans Day.
Do you know what time?
Do not yet.
I misunderstood. I apologize. I thought it was on the 11th. And then Christmas in the Park is December 3rd. We have new items that will be a part of Christmas in the Park this year. We have an ice rink, a synthetic ice rink, and we'll have a giant snow globe that you can get in and take pictures along with the other.
Ice skating.
Yes. Along with the movie in the park that evening and the parade. It's been moved back to the afternoon at 3:30. I believe it's 3:30. And of course, there'll be vendors in the park and food trucks and that we normally have.
All right. Okay, then is that all we have for community interest?
All I have.
Okay, so that takes us to item E, public forum, and I don't believe that I have anyone that's signed in on the public forum, just on an agenda item.
That's the only one I received.
Okay, all right. Then that will take us to item F, consideration of minutes. I believe all of you got your minutes in your packets.
And I'll move to approve the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting from September 20th, 2022.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay. All right, then that takes us to item G1, requirements for plumbing rough-in inspections to include string line to be pulled or a certified form board survey to be provided prior to inspection being performed to verify setback and or easement compliance. So will you give us some background on this?
Yes, sir. As y'all may remember, a couple of meetings back, we did discuss this as a procedure that we would be changing internally. It went to City Council. There were strong opinions about it. So at that time, it was decided to form a builders roundtable. And we had several local builders, some surveyors, some engineers, and we had two from this board there at that meeting that was held on September 15th. After much discussion, it was a very good discussion, I thought. We came to a compromise And what you see before you tonight is if the building is within 12 inches or less from the setback or easement line, a form board survey would be required. If it is 12 inches or greater from the setback or easement line, then string lines will be pulled and verified at the time of inspection.
Okay.
I know we had two members here. Did y'all have anything that you wanted to add about the meeting?
Well, I think it was a very good discussion. I think that what is presented is a good compromise to all parties, internally and externally.
I would agree with that. I think it was from the standpoint of I think it protects not only the builder on the front end, so that once they get to closing and things like that, there's no issues with anything as far as any additional surveys that are required at that point in time to close on a piece of property. And I think I understand that there's additional costs that goes with it, but I think that cost outweighs, in my opinion, it outweighs having to get to the end at the time of sale and having to sell and selling a piece of, or trying to sell a piece of property and end up in a situation where you would literally have to tear the actual house down, move everything over, and start over from the beginning. Even, yes, there's cost that's involved on the front end, but I think in the overall, it protects the builder himself. So, and that's a big thing that I took away from the meeting itself. So I know that we have one of the builders that attended the meeting, Butch Hall, and he's here, and he signed in and requested to speak on this item. So Butch, if you would come forward and just give us name and
Susan's trained me.
So-
It's Butch Hall, and I live at 1803 Everglades Drive in Tyler. I'm the builder, developer, and seller at Forestdale Development. I got some great news. First, I wanted to let you know that we moved in this weekend, our 50th resident this year.
Nice.
That is unbelievable. I don't know how we did it. I don't even know how we got these houses built that quick, but we did. So, and that represents to the city about $15 million worth of tax base that's coming in from that 50th person. We still have several more that we'll be closing on. Not as many as we were hoping to be closing on. The market has changed dramatically. And I say that in that a year ago everything was going so fast and furious that we're back to normal, I guess is the best way to state it. I don't know if y'all see that or not, but once the people have gotten into school and gotten moved over, and so there's usually a lag in October, probably a little bit in November, and there's probably a few more sales that'll happen before the holidays start, and then we start back over in January. So that's great. Also, we put in this year for you, we've got about $2 million of infrastructure that we've added this year. That puts the total up to about $4 million of infrastructure that we've done just in that Forestdale development, which we're really happy to do that. And we got concrete roads, which is great. And so we're very pleased in working with the city and making things happen out here. We're very, very happy. I do want to talk about the form board a little bit. The rate that we move at, it's very difficult for us sometimes. Now I've built 120 houses, and I've had two issues with setbacks You're well aware of the two, I think, of at least one of them with the easement for the drainage, which everybody missed, including myself. And so that was the only drainage that we have out there. And then I had another issue where we actually had two irons, surveying irons, and even though I went over and showed the right iron to my concrete guy, he picked the wrong one, and so it moved us 6 inches off on the back. The front was fine, but the back was. So those are the two. So we've corrected those. We know how to take care of that in the future. But that's a 2%. That's a 2%er is what we've done, you know, our background. So the question I really have is do we have a problem? You know, is there really a problem that we have with the setbacks? I called several municipalities. In fact, all of them are bigger than White House. I talked to Marshall. I called Marshall, which has a population of 23,000. They do no form board surveys on there. Jacksonville, over 13,000. They do not do form boards. Henderson's 13,000. They do not do form boards, but they do something else, and they do what they call stakes. They put stakes up and paint them where the setbacks are. So they form it out and put the stakes into the ground of where they need to have the forms put. And they said that worked out pretty good for them. Of course, I called, and I've talked to Tyler last week, and they have form boards or string. But they also have a 10% variance. So if they're off a few inches, that they can administratively correct that through a variance, but no more than 5 to 10. They said 5 to 10%, but I don't know when the 5 comes in. I don't know when the 10 comes in. But I wanted to get some information myself, trying to learn, you know, what other people are doing and how it works. So that brings me up to that question, you know, how many have we really had that's causing the issue if we have an issue? I know this year we've had, through September, we've had 139 permits that was issued through September, if my numbers are right. That was through September from the chart that y'all published. I actually put in for 72 of those permits. I had 4 in December. If you count that, that's 76. So I'm over 50% of the permits you know, in this area for this period of time. So that's the only question I really have. My biggest concern is that is that the speed that we operate at, getting form board survey. And in phase 5, we have 24 lots in phase 5. 12 of them are going to have to be form board. And the cost of that plus the time it takes to get that done is my concern. And I know you have more planned developments that's already been out here that y'all already approved. And the question is, are you going to grandfather these people in because they haven't had a chance to change their lot sizes? I can't change. I've got 7 phases. I've got a total of 64 more lots that I will be doing between phase 6 and 7, and then I'm finished with single family homes, and then I go to the townhomes, roadhouses that we'll be doing. So we're basically already planned. We've already planned all of our lots, and everything's already done. But now, with the form board requirement that's coming in, now it's going to cause me some extra costs, where I have to change some plans, change my houses around, and I know half of the houses I have in phase 5 are going to have to be form board, and that's caused me some concerns. I really like the stake, and that can be done 2 different ways. One, you can either have the surveyor when he comes out, because I have surveyors come out and check my corners on all of my lots when I get started. I always do that. But I can also get them to go ahead and put in the setbacks for me at that time and just use the setbacks. He can do that at the same time that he surveys. And that saves the time of having to go back and do a form board. It took me 2 weeks to do a form board for 2 lots. And that's really time consuming for us. Plus the additional lumber that my finishers have to put out. Because if I do that, I need to do probably 4 instead of doing 2 at a time. I probably need to do 4 to do the form boards and continue that way. And it's going to cost a little bit more on the lumber for him to get that set up, which eventually comes back to me. Yeah, cost is an issue. Time is more important to me right now, being able to beat the weather and get things done on a timely manner. So those are the concerns that I have. I would like to see, instead of saying 12 inches, just have, if we go form boards, just say, you know, form boards or string like Tyler is doing. Although I don't like Tyler doing things in Tyler, they don't do things really right. I know lots of builders right now that are not going to go back and build in Tyler. They've already said that they're not going in Tyler. But I think doing this requirement, you may have some more difficulties in getting builders to come in here. You know, we're kind of pushing regulations in there, and I'm just wondering how many, you know, is that going to be pushing some people out from wanting to come to White House? So I'm White House pro. I mean, I'm really for White House. I've got lots invested in it. In fact, I was just looking at what we're going to have right now. If I don't sell any more houses this year, I've got about $4.6 million that's going to be ready for the spring. But I hope I can get some more sold before now and the end of the year. But that's my opinion. That's what I'm going to do. Whatever y'all decide to do, you know. But I just wanted to voice what I thought was the best way. I didn't want to do anything that you know. I'm trying to find a good solution, something that's simple and easy. I don't like coming up with a problem and not having a good solution. But I think we may be overkilling asking for form boarding. But that's the reason why I think the stakes are a better solution, because it is something that's visible where the inspector can come up and he has to look at it. Because if you do the string, somebody's got to be there to measure it with the inspector being there. Where if you have the stake out either by a surveyor or by the builder, he stakes it out, puts it there, then the inspector can actually see that the forms are behind or in that same area. When you get into slopes, you have a different situation. Form boards need to be there. I understand that. Our property is all pretty well flat, so we don't have that particular, you know, issue with the slopes on it. So I thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Butch. Thank you. So do y'all have questions about, y'all have any questions about this?
Yeah. Okay. Tons.
Okay.
Would this have fixed those 2 issues? And how were they caught?
So we had more than just Mr. Hall's issues. First of all, it wasn't just those 2 that he mentioned. We had some in other places.
Right.
So this isn't us picking on any one builder, or the result of just an issue in one development. They were all caught in surveys before the builder went to sell. So they came back to council with the option of you either require that they tear down a new home or you give back public property, either a drainage easement or setback. And so that's how they were caught. And we feel like, you know, staff was really kind of charged with working towards finding a solution, because giving back things that should be in a dedicated drainage easement is a pain point, and that's a big deal. So that's what we did. We as well talked to some other cities and found out what they do. So that's kind of the solution that we came up with. We did meet with the builders. We did talk about stakes being put out by the surveyor. That was one thing that they discussed at the builders roundtable. And there are some similar concerns and issues with that method as well, in that how do we know who's put them out? not comfortable with the builder putting them out for the same reason that they could be pulling them off the wrong pin, or, you know, mistakes happen, and so, I think we left the builders roundtable with a pretty good consensus, maybe not everybody agreeing, and I don't know that anybody, I think we left with the consensus that this was a viable solution, so. Did that answer your question? How it was
Somewhat.
found? Okay, it was found through the survey before the sale.
Well, we also have to consider that not every builder has built 120 houses, so,
Right.
you know,
Well, man, my follow-up would have been, how prevalent has this been in the past, just has not been caught? You know,
Yeah, I'm like
I
him,
don't know
how,
the
how
answer
often
to-
does this happen?
I
If
mean,
he's
we've
done
had-
2 out of 126,
if
is
he-
this a
if-
concurring problem?
This
If he's got
impacts-
2%
this was-
and he's diligent about not letting that happen, how are some of these other builders?
I will say probably within the setback, it's a lot more common. I can think of probably 8 to 10 in the time I've been here, which is 3 years.
You think
within
that's
the
people
setback.
just pushing the limit? Or do you think it's all accidental?
No, I think we're seeing a real shift. You know, used to when builders would build homes, it was larger lots. You had, you know, you weren't building right up to setback lines. You know, as lots get smaller and houses get bigger, it's just gonna occur more often. And so, so I think we are seeing an increase in it. I think we're also seeing growth that we haven't seen here in a long time. I mean, you know, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody's doing it on purpose. I can't imagine that a builder would build within a setback or an easement on purpose.
Right.
Because that's a huge risk for them.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think, you know, as houses get bigger and lots get smaller, it just, mistakes are more prone to happen.
I'm just wondering how big of a problem it really is.
I mean, I can think of no less than 10 that were exceeding the setbacks, for sure.
So it is a problem that does need a solution then.
In my mind, yes.
Hence the reason that, yeah, I think it was brought up
Right.
originally, and having the builders roundtable and having that input and getting input, because you had, in that roundtable, you had builders that build, you know, 3 or 4 houses a year, up to folks like Mr. Hall, who, you know, through production is, you know, putting out a lot. And it's not just Mr. Hall that was there as far as a production type of builder.
Sure.
I mean, you had you had a representative from Conaway and various others. Like I said, it was a gamut across the board. And we had surveyors and engineers that were there, and we had good input from them, not from a standpoint of a monetary standpoint of being paid to do a survey. It's based upon input from them, based upon experiences that they had experienced in various other communities, various other places where they're experiencing these same type of situations in various other communities that are around. And so it was, in my opinion, we had a lot of real good input across the board from a variety of different builders. And so I would agree. I think it was a compromise based upon based upon the information that was provided during that roundtable. And it was, you know, I understand from the standpoint of my own experience working from a production builder point of view, and the time and the effort and all of that. But I also see it as a safeguard to, you know, whom I work for and to other builders that, you know, doing this on the front end could actually save money on the back end if something is done incorrectly or wrong. And if we've got 10 instances where, quite frankly, I mean, we didn't have to give that, you know, that public right-of-way back. We could have got, I mean, council could have said no, and then where would the builder be? Tearing something down, or, you know, and it may not have necessarily been tearing an entire structure down, but it may have been going back in and reworking an entire structure, and how much money would that have been? You know, it might have been cheaper to tear the whole thing down and start over than it would have been to, you know, to do, you know, to go back and do that. And I agree, I mean, it's difficult to give that public right of way back.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's there for a purpose, and so, I mean, that's my, you know, that's kind of my
And
my
one of
input
the
on
other points of discussion that we had at that roundtable, I think one of the builders sitting near me anyway, he said if I know, you know, that if I'm within 12 inches, I can run the numbers and see what the offset is for the revenue for the extra square footage versus the cost of the form board survey. Now, for those developers that are already in progress or already have plans developed, that's a little bit different, you know, it's a little bit harder for them to do that.
Right.
But going forward for new construction, you know, the developer or the builder can then make that decision. Hey, is the revenue for the extra square footage gonna offset the cost of the form board survey or not? And we're trying to find provisions for larger lots that aren't near setbacks or near, you know, if you're on a half-acre lot, okay, streamline is probably sufficient, so.
So would this be immediate? Like, or,
We haven't talked about that, I don't guess, as to when it would go into effect, so we could certainly, that's a point that's open for discussion.
Would everything prior to that be grandfathered, like it is?
This would, so unless it was specifically stated, it would go for new permit applications, I'm guessing, would be, so anything that has not already been applied for a permit, would be required to do it. The way it stands now, you could certainly, make other provisions if you wanted.
and is this a decision or a
This is a
Suggestion.
recommendation.
Recommendation.
This is a
Okay.
recommendation to council.
Okay,
They're the ones that will actually make the, you know, it's just a recommendation from us based upon, you know, our discussion to them, and then they'll be the ones that will then have a further discussion on it and make the final decision on it. So,
Could we not just make it plain that, or make it obvious that in the event that a builder makes a mistake, that we're not gonna grant a variance? That instead of putting these measures in to make sure they do it properly, just make sure that it's obvious that if you make a mistake, that's on you. If you have to tear the house down, that's your deal.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what you're saying is if you decide to build within that 12-inch variance and you're, and it doesn't pass, it's not on us to fix it.
Yeah, just
It's
make
not
sure-
on the city to fix it, it's up to you to fix it,
I
right?
guess so. I
Just
mean,
make it
and
black and
there's-
white like that? Is that what you're?
That's what it would seem to me, because it sort of seems like that the grace that have been offered on those 10 instances are kind of being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Or maybe not taken advantage of, that's not the right way to put it, but it's not the city's problem when it's not built the way it should be built. And it seems to me we're putting in a mechanism to try to make sure they do what they're supposed to do.
They're supposed to do in the first place, right?
If you don't do it, it's on you. And that way it doesn't cost any more money, it doesn't
Doesn't
It
cost
doesn't
the
impact
builder any
building
more
costs,
money?
anything, you just do what you're supposed to do, and if you don't, these are gonna be the implications of it.
so the counter argument to that is that, you know, our whole building inspection process is to make sure that these builders do what they're supposed to do. I mean, that is the whole nature of our building and development process. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Susan, we wouldn't have a Jody, we wouldn't have, I'm not saying that to be flippant, I just, that is part of our purview in having a building department. Because it's not just the builder that's impacted, it's the home buyer, it's the resident that lives in the home, it's
Future
other
purchasers.
taxpayers, future purchasers, all the way down. So if it were, that's really easy to do when it's just the city or and the builder, and we're looking at it from a commercial transaction, but when we're talking about homes that people are gonna live in or commercial structures, you know, it's a little bit, there is a third party that we need to consider. Not advocating for bigger government, let me be clear, I'm just saying.
I
That is the
understand your
mission of the
point, and
inspection process.
some of the inspection things are more complex, so.
Sure.
They deal with things that the layperson may not can grasp.
Yeah.
But where something is located on a survey is pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
So,
So that's not something that he has to inspect right now, is it? He just has to do the plumbing rough in inspection, right?
Right.
Right, no, he doesn't do a form board, we don't get the form board survey, nor is there string line there
Right.
for him to verify.
He's just looking at the plumbing,
Right.
right?
This is
So-
an added step for him.
So he doesn't
Yes.
inspect the foundation or anything, just the,
He does inspect the foundation.
is there a foundation inspection on,
Yes.
on residential?
But it does not include
But the
where it's
builder,
sitting on the lot,
Right.
because by that point, it's already there. That's why you do the form boards or the string line at the plumbing rough before it's poured.
the builder doesn't physically pour the concrete. He has a vendor come in. And so the builder's familiar with the lot and where everything is. And then he has a vendor come in and say, put it here. Well, you know, they're not familiar with it. They've got to have some kind of guidance. You know, that's how it can get off, because it's just this vendor pulls up, pours some concrete. You know, you got to tell them. They got to know where to put it. So that's easy to get off.
how much does a form board survey cost?
I
I'm
don't,
trying to remember what they said at the builder's
$500
warranty.
to $1,000.
They said 4 to 8.
It's real money. Especially at 7%.
But it more
Hey, if
addresses
you look
like
at CPI.
the volume builders in the neighborhoods that have smaller lots and bigger houses, you know. So that's where you need the protection.
So would it be on Jody to go out and inspect make sure that the surveys are done and the string lines are done?
Yes,
So
that
it's
will be an added step,
An
and
added-
an added cost for us, yes.
yeah, an added,
Yeah, because if it's string line, then, I mean, yes, he'll have to, if the string lines will have to be present
Be there.
at the time of inspection, and two, he'll have to pull a tape, you know, he'll have to get out and pull a tape and make sure that it's within those setbacks. Now, if there is a certified form board inspection, then no, he doesn't have to go out and measure, because he's got a certified copy, a piece of paper that says that this surveyor has certified that this is in the correct location. So, any other discussion? Questions? Okay, so we have, so if not, then I will either hear a motion to recommend the requirements for plumbing rough-in inspections to include string line to be pulled or a certified form board survey to be provided prior to inspection being performed to verify setbacks and/or easement compliance. And that's a recommendation to council.
I move that we recommend it to council.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
yes. Randy Humphrey,
Yes.
Tony Harris,
Yes.
Cassie Hollingshead,
For
David Wright,
or,
Daniel Turner,
Yes.
and Chad Cleckler.
Yes. Okay, so motion passes. So we will now go to council. Okay. All right.
Susan, will we do that this coming Tuesday or?
Yes, it's on the agenda for this coming Tuesday.
This Tuesday.
Okay.
Same place, same time.
Same batch.
Yes.
Same chair.
All right, then that takes us to item H1, our staff reports. Hey, hey.
As Mr. Hall mentioned, permits are up. Permit fees are up to go along with that. And inspections are up to go
Inspections are
along
up.
with that as well.
Okay.
So you see those big spikes in some of those numbers. I think as some of you may have heard, Susan, we have one development in particular right now that all those permits are coming in together. So sometimes, you know, if we get them in 1 month, it really
Yeah.
kind of skews the numbers for 36 at a time, kind of changes the way that graph looks. So one thing Susan has been working on that we were talking about just before the meeting, I think beginning tomorrow, hopefully, if all goes well, our contractors will be able to submit for permits online, pay online, which is a huge deal. I know it seems maybe kind of like we should have been doing that, but Susan's worked very hard to get that up and running, and I think it'll be a big benefit to not only taking some of the workload off of our staff, but hopefully a little bit more convenient for contractors and builders. So we're really excited to get that up and running.
Yes, and for actual home builders, I'm still working through that process. It's mostly from the subcontractors right now. But maybe you and I can work out a test.
That's exciting stuff.
But the contractors can, is what you're saying.
All the subs can. I'll have it hopefully on the website tomorrow.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed and hold your breath.
All right, anybody got any questions about our reports or anything? All right, then that will take us to item I.
I move that we adjourn.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Made this meeting longer than it should have been.